Your source for all things Texas Tech. This is the Ask Level podcast from Double T 97.3.
Hey, what's going on? Welcome into another episode of the Ask Level podcast. Alongside Chris Level, I'm Chois Woodman. This podcast, as usual, brought to you by our friends at Cantex Roofing and Construction.
I'm Mike Hebert, owner of Cantex Roofing and Construction. Every day is game day, and we'll get it right when it comes to your roofing, construction, windows, and mirrors. Call Cantex Roofing and Construction today. Together, we are one serving you.
Level, lots happened since we talked a week ago. At a football game that went really well. Probably, I think, inarguably your best football game of the year for Texas Tech. 52-15 went over West Virginia. There was a coaching change, or a couple of coaching changes on the defensive side, including defensive coordinator Tim Deruyter, no longer on the staff for Texas Tech football. Some guy named Micah Hudson intends to enter the transfer portal, according to several reports out there. You played a basketball game that went well. You were missing a basketball player on Friday night, and there's some questions up in the air about that. So I don't think we're going to lack in content today, Level. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Just trying to keep my head above water.
We're trying to figure out bowl projections and where the heck the Red Raiders are going to go in a week. So there's that too.
Never a dull moment, right?
That's right.
Yeah,
Red Raiders for life. So let's start with the actual product on the field, football. Texas Tech,
which is all that's supposed to matter,
right? Isn't that why we're here?
That's what I thought, but I don't think that's the.
Yeah, if you read any message boards or chat lines or anything like that, you wouldn't know Texas Tech had won a game 52-15. I don't know what I was expecting Saturday. But my goodness, it was not that. I was not expecting the pleasant surprise we got from the Red Raider football team. One of your most all-around performances of the year, obviously, and doing it against a team that was already bowl eligible in West Virginia. But it seemed like just about every facet of the game, the Red Raiders were dominant on Saturday, and that was refreshing.
Yeah, against a team that had not lost a conference road game to that point.
Yeah.
They end up finishing 3-1 on the road in the Big 12. But yeah, I assumed we were going to get a close one, kind of a grind of sorts. I thought you'd probably be able to outscore them. But yeah, you just kind of blew up on them. And it was, for whatever reason, these 11 a.m. games in the second quarter, you've had these lulls, and everybody talks about lack of offense in the second quarter, but it's also been lack of defense in the second quarter, and it just allows other teams to get back in the game after a fast start or whatever it was. But yeah, you just kind of poured it on in the second quarter, and then defense played really, really well. West Virginia is not in a position to get into a shootout with anybody. That's just not how they're built. They want to play a limited possession, grind it out, move the chains, keep the other offense off the field, all those kinds of things. But you mix in some takeaways, and you just kind of blew up on them. I thought West Virginia played okay in the second half, but the game was already over. It was a lot of fun to kind of watch, to have a stress-free Saturday afternoon, only to turn to Sunday, to which was like, oh man, everything was fun for just a bit, but then all these, but this is just the sport these days. This is the world we live in. But you go 6-3 in the league. You cap off, one of your best regular seasons, and since 2009. You have a chance at a ninth win in a bowl game, and you ended it the right way. There was some frustration, I think, there at different points of the season. I think you're left going, man, what if, as the Big 12 title game shakes out, you're those Iowa State and Arizona State have 4 combined losses, and 2 of those are at the hands of Texas Tech.
Yeah.
I mean, so I was not prepared to say at any point that your win over Arizona State back in Lubbock
No kidding.
in early October, I guess it was your or late September,
Late
whatever.
September. Yeah.
Yeah, late September. What was arguably your most impressive win, and that is absolutely true.
Has to be.
And here's the crazy part is that you really struggled on defense this year, and yet that day you Kim Scattaboo rushed for 60 yards.
Yeah.
He had a long screen pass that he ends up going over 100 all-purpose yards in the game. But I think overall you kept him in check. You kept Jordan Tyson in check and Sam Levitt in check, and
Yep.
they've been a wagon since. And if not for a couple of missed field goals up in Cincinnati, they would have punched their ticket a week earlier into
Right.
the Big 12 title game. So crazy, man. And they were picked, what, dead last? Is that right?
Dead last. 16th out of 16. I know. This year's it's been wild. But yeah, you've got wins over both of the Big 12 title participants, and I think we talked about it before the year, and it's hard to put numbers on everything, but it felt like this was a year level that you needed to win 8 games. Looking at the schedule, which changed everything, or the games you thought were easier became harder, and vice versa in a lot of situations. Like who knew that your game against Arizona State would look a whole lot better than a road win over Oklahoma State and Stillwater. I mean, these kind of things, you had no idea of knowing that before the season. But I think most people felt like 8 wins needed to be your minimum this year, looking at what you had, and you reached that. It absolutely does mean progress. You can't look at it and say it's not progress when you get to 8 wins for the first time in 15 years, but it doesn't take away the what if feelings, the what could have been type of feelings, especially with a 1-point loss in Fort Worth, and the question marks of who's listening into your stuff for maybe Baylor or TCU, and this will go down as one of those seasons where you are left wondering. But I also think it's like it has potential to be that stepping stone for going back to the program you hope to be.
Yeah, and you also, if you look at it, you played 5 of the top 6 teams in the Big 12 based on their record. The only one you didn't play was BYU.
Yep.
And I don't think everybody looked at your schedule beforehand and you thought you had it figured out.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we're going to, at some point, we'll realize that as much time as we talk about this in the summer and everything like that, it's just very hard to project. And so many things change and whatnot.
More teams is harder. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and the portal changes things,
Sure
and
does.
chemistry changes, and some teams get it before others, and injuries change it, and all that. But yeah, I mean, you played Iowa State, Arizona State, Colorado, Baylor, TCU. Those teams are all tied with you or ahead of you, and you beat some of those teams and lost to some of those teams. BYU is the only one in that group that you didn't play. So I think your schedule turned out to be much tougher than anybody would have thought before the season even started. And you're right. What's crazy is Oklahoma State was like one of the teams picked to win this thing, and they don't end up winning a Big 12 game after going to the title game last year. So go figure. Sports, right?
Yeah.
But it is, yeah, and that's what I think this conversation is part of why I think Coach McGuire made a tough decision
Yeah.
to change. Because you hear roller coaster, which very ably describes this season for Texas Tech. And I mean, look no further than the last 2 weeks of like what defensive product you put out in Stillwater versus what defensive product you put out versus West Virginia. These look like totally different groups. One group couldn't really just have an answer or stop anybody on their
Yep.
heels, and then a week later, they look completely different. And just the high and the low there, that's really what led to a lot of this roller coaster of a season you had. And if you just would have won one more conference game, whether it be Colorado, Baylor, or TCU, you're in Arlington this weekend and you're playing for a league championship. You're potentially playing for a spot in the playoff, all that stuff, and you were just that close. And you're right. You have wins over both of the participants that are in Arlington. So it's in some ways it's a validation that you had a good year. In some ways,
Sure.
it even makes it more frustrating, and all that. But yeah, it's just the kind of a game of what if.
Yep. And you can play that game forever in your head, and it won't make you feel any better. But I'll choose joy on this and be happy that you got to 8 wins. I mean, I am. I wanted to see this team I want to see these barriers broken down, and I'm so tired of the you haven't done this since then, and you haven't done that. I'm tired of so many of those conversations. So glad to get that one out of the way. That haven't won 8 games since 2009, and hope you continue to move forward in those situations. Here's one level. You mentioned Tim Deruyter and the decision to move on from him. Let's see. This one is from Josh. It says, was firing Tim Deruyter decision made after the Oklahoma State game? Because it would seem odd to fire him after Tech's best defensive performance against West Virginia.
Well, if you go back to various things that Joey has stated throughout the season, in recent weeks, the last month, on some of his media availabilities, I think that you go back, I don't know if it was a month or 5 weeks ago, folks, we have got to play better defense around here if we want to win a championship.
Yeah.
And that, and then you get into after the Oklahoma State game, he was asked about coordinators and things like that. And I think he stated, we've got to make some decisions there. We've been looking at it, and trying to determine what is best and which direction to go and and he specifically pointed to offensive line and the pass defense, if you want to nail it down.
Yeah.
Because your pass defense is, I think, there's only one school that's worse in the country if you base that on how many passing yards you give up per game. You're giving up over 300 passing yards a game. And that's just not a recipe for winning. And, you go back and look at we're talking about the what if. Everybody wants to point at either Will Hammond or Zach Kitley or play call or decision to kick a field goal in Fort Worth.
Oh, man.
And all that, but it's just nobody talks about like the 86-yard touchdown pass that you just less than a minute. It's like, hey, we got this big lead.
Two bombs in the final 5 minutes of that game that are backbreaking.
Yeah.
Backbreaking.
I mean, and I think in that game, you gave up, or TCU had their longest play from scrimmage, and then they would break their own record later on in the game.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
Unfortunately,
I've said this in another deal that I do that I think I'm right here. So I think of the 5 of the 12 games that you've played, the opposing quarterback has won a weekly award for their league on the Monday after they played you.
ouch.
This does not count John Mateer, because the Pac-12 doesn't give these awards, and John Mateer had a career day
Yeah,
against you on the ground. So theoretically, if Washington State was in a normal league, it probably
yeah.
would have been 6. But that's, the Sawyer Robertson performance, the Maverick McGuire performance, the kid from Oklahoma State, what he was able to do. He got newcomer of the week.
Yep.
And anyway, that just became, unfortunately. But the frustrating thing, though, is that you saw glimpses of, I think, very competitive / good defense.
Yeah.
In Tucson, in Ames, Iowa, in Fort Worth for portions of that game, but other portions you just had complete breakdowns.
Yeah.
Against West Virginia, and I think I've said this often around here. everybody is almost like either trained or brainwashed or whatever to focus everything that's wrong with the offense and focus on what's right on the defense.
Yeah,
And we hold on to those narratives.
we do.
And and statistically, you have a top 10 offense in the country, like eighth in scoring, 10th in total yards. And I think you have one of the NCAA worst defenses is scoring and points given up. I think you were giving up 34 and a half points a game, giving
Hmm.
up like over 450 yards a game. So anyway, it's to each his own on what they want to believe or what they root for or whatever. But
Yeah.
I think that's got to be a bit more. I don't want to say evened out. You love the top 10 parts of the offense, but you just need the defense to because I mean I'll just if you could if you'd have just been somehow in the 60s or 70s in total defensive rankings and mixed in some more stops or takeaways or shaved off like a field goal here and a touchdown there. I mean, and Joey said this after the West Virginia game. It's a minor miracle that as bad as our defense was at times that we still won 8 games. And
Yeah.
I don't disagree with it when you look at the numbers.
I mean, yeah, how many that was the whole narrative from the entire Cliff Kingsbury regime, right? It was if you only had a defense that could be average, then you would have been an amazing team. And the difference is you've won a lot of these close games under Joey McGuire, and that's how you get to eight wins. So hard to argue with that for sure. Level there. Speaking of coaching changes and those sorts of things, this one was asked before the Deruyter departure, but Kyle asked, what percentage would you put on Kitley returning next season, either Tech decision or him going and getting another job?
Yeah, well, I'll end what I mean. Tech will, if anything, they will try to extend his contract, give him a new one.
Yeah,
There is no, yeah. I mean, I mean, I don't know what anybody would want, but you're,
yeah.
yeah.
You
But
finish with a top 10 scoring
uh,
offense in the country. It's as simple as that. You can end
yeah,
any sort of discussion like that.
and you score. Yeah, I think on average you were scoring 38 points a game. And I'm not sitting here wanting to tell you that the offense is perfect and all that, but
No,
you have to also understand that, you were limited with your offensive line and that affects everything that you're doing. The fear would be that Zach will have opportunities, and he does have opportunities. He
sure.
will have opportunities. And, can you retain him? I don't think he would leave to be a coordinator elsewhere. But I think that, some of these group of five head jobs. I think you'll see his name pop up quite a bit, and we'll see. But I mean, I think the odds are, I don't know, 50-50 on whether he's back here, and we'll just kind of see how that plays out. I would think if he's back here, though, it's under a new contract because he's just got 1 year left on his deal.
Yeah,
And athletic directors, they want to be. It's the same reason why Mike Leach was attractive to you back in 99, 2000 timeframe.
yeah.
We want to be we want to light up a scoreboard. We want to give our program an identity. And I think that some administrator out there is going to say, hey, man, let's give this guy a chance. But yeah, he's definitely got those opportunities. So we'll just kind of see. He's not going to just leave for anything. But
So what
you know,
percentage would you put on? I mean, that's what if
yeah, 50.
anything.
I just said 50-50.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, I mean, I
50-50.
just think I think it really is. I mean, I think it's that's a hit and miss right there.
I mean,
I don't really know how that will play out, but I mean, there's a real good chance that he will take another job. But I mean, I think that I just which job that is.
right.
But this is there's a lot as we sit here and talk. There's a lot out there going on with decisions being made and all those things. So, like I said, I'm willing to tell you that I don't think he leaves to be a coordinator somewhere else,
Yeah.
even though I think that, he could have his salary tripled, theoretically, by a Big Ten or an SEC school if they wanted to
Yeah.
entertain that. I mean, he's a Red Raider, and this is where he likes being, and his family's
Yeah.
here, and all that stuff. So we'll see how this plays out. I for
There's
one, I hope he does not leave. I
same
think
here.
the best thing for Texas Tech football is that he remains here.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you got two jobs open in the Big 12 right now in Central Florida and West Virginia now. And then you got tons of jobs across the country, Power Five and Group of Five that are open. I'm just talking about head jobs, including one in the state of Texas right now at Sam Houston that seems to be in a pretty good spot at the moment. But so we'll see. I don't want to see Zach Kitley go, but if he gets a head coaching job, no one can blame him. Let's see. Before we get to the Micah Hudson stuff, we miss anything in terms of football? I mean, 52-15 looked pretty darn good on Saturday level, but
Well, and you have a 1,500-yard rusher
oh,
and a
there we go.
1,000-yard
Yeah,
receiver for the first time ever.
yeah,
I just was very happy for a lot of those seniors because
absolutely.
Mason Tharp got to have a moment, Jalen Conyers got to have a moment, Taj Brooks got to have several moments, and
Yeah,
including
so good.
a curtain call of sorts where everybody got to celebrate him, and he was just 12 yards shy of going hitting the 200-yard mark on the day.
Football is not a
Uh,
sport you don't get to see curtain calls very often in football. You see it in basketball, you see it in baseball, but for the ability to be in that game and have the blowout going and get that opportunity for Taj, I mean that played out about as perfectly as it could have.
and you're right. It's because I mean, you and I, we were coming in. I mean, Vegas had this as a 3-point
Yeah.
spread, and you think you're going to be in a dogfight, and you've got a
Yep.
staff over there that's coaching for their jobs and all those things. But you know, yeah, I just I was happy for a lot of those guys. There's CJ Baskerville with an interception.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I just, it was just it's fun to those days are rare when it just all goes right.
Agreed.
Everybody gets to eat, and you just kind of share it, and it was just a fun day at the stadium, and weather was great. Everybody left happy, and that's the way this stuff is supposed to go. It just because the last two times we left that stadium, it had been a lot of fun,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
And
that was as important as anything. Is I think Joey was like, we owe it to our fans to play well here, and I thought everybody got to have a bit of a post Thanksgiving party at the hands of the Mountaineers.
yep, no doubt. There was a question, what bowl game do you guys think we'll be in? Is there a chance that Tech could end up in the Alamo or Texas Bowl? Because I'm wanting to go, says this one.
Yeah, there's definitely a chance. I think that prior to the Big 12 title game being played this weekend, I think that a lot of it points to either going to Houston or going to Phoenix.
Okay.
As you and I were talking about before we started taping, I think that if Iowa State were to beat Arizona State this weekend, I think the Big 12 schools. So let me
Mhm.
figure out how to explain this. Like Arizona State and Colorado are not considered schools that would be filling Big 12 bowl slots.
Yes.
The way that they had these pre-existing contracts, the four schools from the Big 12 that came from the Pac-12 and the four schools that went to the Big 10 from the Pac-12, including Washington State and Oregon State,
Yep.
they will all fill out the Pac-12 bowl tie-ins. And so if Iowa State beats and goes to the playoff, everybody will move up a slot,
Yeah.
and that includes your TCUs and your Baylors and Texas Techs and Kansas State. Although the three Texas schools have a better conference record than Kansas State does, but
Yep.
everybody's sitting there at either 9-3 or 8-4 or whatever it is. And so, but obviously Colorado will go to a Pac-12 game. Um, Arizona State would go to a Pac-12 game or the playoff if they were to win. And West Virginia wouldn't. And I'm trying to make like I think of. Oh yeah, there's BYU. BYU is going to factor into, and BYU will be an attractive
Sure.
option for somebody as well, just because of the national following and the fans and the viewing and audience and all that kind of stuff. So, um, as of right now, it certainly points to, like I said, Houston or Phoenix. And so we'll just kind of see what we get. But you can see these bowls broker a deal, or you can see ESPN get involved. And like I
Hmm.
think West Virginia won 9 games last year. They ended up playing in a game that was not even affiliated with the Big 12. They like kind of made a trade,
Right.
to
Right.
fill, just to kind of, because it's all about ticket sales and viewing audience and all that
Sure.
stuff. And um,
And with the
so we'll,
Pac-12 and their weird situation, we could see more of that. I mean, I saw a projection last week that had Tech in the Holiday Bowl. Not likely, but these sorts of things
yeah,
still could happen. So
yeah, I'd go to San Diego again.
I would I wouldn't mind
Yeah.
it. Yeah, I think Houston or Phoenix, yeah, those are fine spots. But I think there are still just a few outside chances out there. You look at projections, you could end up in Fort Worth or Dallas too with Armed Forces or First Responder Bowl, and you'd still get a good showing. It's just not as attractive of a bowl name.
Yeah,
But
and the one intriguing possibility, if you go to the Rate Bowl in Phoenix, and this is probably something that the head coach of
yeah,
the Red Raiders does not want,
right,
although it would be a hell of a storyline.
sure it
It
would.
would be something that the TV networks would sink their teeth into, is you being paired with Nebraska,
Yeah,
with Joey's former mentor Matt Rule and Joey's son Garrett on
yep,
that staff. You would deal with, I mean, it would be a road game because Nebraska hasn't been to a bowl game in a long time, and
yeah,
I think those people are chomping at the bit.
in a baseball
And
stadium as well too.
that is the weird thing. Yeah, I think the teams share the same sideline.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
so it will be a weird dynamic if it ends, because it's Chase Field where the Diamondbacks play,
correct.
is where that game is played. So we'll see what we
Sure.
get, and
And we'll
and
have
go
an
from
answer
there
by we
next time we take.
time we
Yep,
talk.
that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, that's
So,
right.
okay, so can't neglect it completely. Micah Hudson, uh, reported to enter the transfer portal. Now, level as we speak, the portal doesn't even open till next week officially. But the reports are that he intends to enter the transfer portal. We'll start off with a question. This one was from Jack. Let's see if I can find it. It says, what changed with Micah Hudson? You guys have been saying that where'd he go? What you guys have been saying that he was in good standing and had good attitude with Texas Tech. Why all of a sudden does it seem like he's going in the portal?
And that's very fair. And as my wife was like, "What's the deal?" Like, you said he was, and I'm like, "Yeah, I know." I mean, and I don't remember how many times or when the last times we've gotten into this. All you can go off of is what you know at the time.
Sure.
And that's what I can't speak for you, Choice, but that's all I was doing
Same
throughout
here.
this process.
Yep.
And um, I think things changed a bit. Well, one, he rooms with Jalen Peoples,
Okay.
and Jalen Peoples also hit the portal. As I had somebody that would likely know misery loves company, and
Yeah.
who knows? But I think there was a lot of frustration, really, on both sides of this deal when I guess he kind of got hurt or shut it down about a month or so ago. I think it was prior to the Iowa State game.
Okay.
That's when he did not, and there was some, whether he's hurt or has a stress fracture or whether that's legitimate and he's trying to preserve and maybe see if he can't get this year back. Who knows? Doesn't matter. That's not my battle to fight or argue it. I don't know what is true, what's not true. It
Okay.
doesn't really matter. But
Which
I
is
think
that even
that's
possible? He
I
participated in
I
8 games.
I,
So
I
I
don't know. Yeah,
okay.
I don't know. I
That
don't know.
seems odd. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. That's
Yeah. Yeah.
not. I've just had.
Yeah.
I've
I've seen the
had.
same stuff. Yeah.
I've had more than few. Tell me that. I don't. So who
Okay.
knows?
Okay.
But for whatever reason, it just didn't. It didn't work. I think. I don't know if anybody would say this publicly, but I think this has been a headache for a lot of people, just all of it. I don't know if and so I'm careful here. I don't think you like, well, that means you're just never going to go after a really good player again and try to recruit him for fear of dealing with all this stuff. That's not what I'm saying at all. I just think that there's been a lot gone on here that everybody will be kind of glad not to have to deal with anymore.
Hmm.
And I guess my question that I would ask aloud is, what did he not get here that he is seeking elsewhere? And I can't answer that question. Uh, it wasn't, and people are like, wow, well, he didn't hardly get to play. He played more than people realize, and then there was this injury.
Yeah.
But I also think people forget that he missed all of spring, part of August, and was trying to learn. And it's just, I guess people just assume sometimes that this is easy, or that he was so good that he just stepped right in and just start making plays. And
Hmm.
I know, here's the other thing. I know that people have pointed to all the other five-star, guys out there that have played a
Seen that.
bunch.
Yeah.
Um, like if you watch Ryan Williams for Alabama, he's like running away from Georgia DBs.
Yeah.
This isn't Micah Hudson's game. He was more of a ball skills guy, and just tremendous ball skills and all that. But he needed to, one of the things he was going to have to learn is like, because he's not a burner. He's not. I mean, if you remember back to the North Texas game, he got caught from behind against the North Texas DB.
Yeah.
So it's not like you were like not playing one of your fastest players. And I just think it takes a bit, but for whatever reason, it's just I think there was a general level of frustration as it grew, but he obviously is. But I mean, he had gotten local NIL deals from a couple of local businesses. He was a Mahomes brand ambassador with Adidas. I mean, got playing time when some, I think, were not even sure if he had earned it.
Yeah.
But that's for other people to determine that, because I've seen criticism of they didn't play him. Then I see other people criticizing like they burned his red shirt. They should have redshirted him. Which is it?
It's just,
I don't know.
yeah.
And so
Yeah. Yeah.
um, yeah, it just didn't work. He, as you mentioned, he intends to enter the portal. I do believe that's what will happen. I
Okay.
don't know if there's. I think the conversations have already taken place on trying to get on the same page, and I think you're moving on. And I think
Okay.
if you're Texas Tech, you're going to now try to focus on going to find another Josh Kelly or Caleb Douglas, two guys that combined for I think about 1,800 receiving yards
Sure.
this year, and you'll go try to find another one like that. And then and if you say this, people are going to go, "Oh, come on!" But I mean, you do have other young, good receivers on
Yeah.
campus. Kelby Valson. I mean,
Saw
you
him
hear
play more
great
at the
things
end of the
about
year.
Tyson Turner,
Yeah.
and these guys are all like either true freshmen or redshirt freshmen. You're about to sign three or four more
Yep.
this week, and some of those guys are pretty good too,
Sure.
and we're highly recruited. And I know some things were said about Micah. And he was like a different recruit, and that comes with all this and all the questions that we got, and I understand that. But here's what I would say, Woodman, is that I wish him well. I think everybody around here wish him well. I don't know if there'll be just a lot of folks that are just terribly sad that he's not around here anymore, but that's beside the point. The point is, as a Texas Tech fan, or podcaster or writer or
Hmm.
whatever, you just you would hope that he doesn't go off and is Jalen Polk.
Right.
And
That's
people are
I
like,
thought the same thing.
people are like, who is that?
Right, because it's only going to be bad for.
Jalen Polk left after 1 year, and you really had just started to see some glimpses there, and then he went off to be a dude,
Hmm.
and it was like a second round pick, I think, in the NFL draft, and played the national title game last year for the Washington Huskies.
Yeah.
It'll take a lot to be Jalen Polk.
Yes.
Or does he go off and is he just Miles Price and just kind of blends in on a good team? Or does he go off and is he Jerron Bradley, who was a all Big 12 guy before the last season even started, and then he goes to Boston College and you just don't really see or hear from him much again, and he doesn't really get to play. I don't know, but you'll worry about your own house and just kind of see what happens there.
Well, Level went fast as expected. Right out of time. We'll talk basketball. We'll talk bowl game. We'll talk more of this, I'm sure, on the other side of signing day as well. So we got plenty to continue to talk through the month of December, talk about through the month of December. But as usual, appreciate your time, and we'll do it again.
Yeah, I hope everybody out there had a happy Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Guns up, keep hope alive. Thank you again to the folks at Cantex Roofing, and we'll talk to you next time.
Absolutely. That's Chris Level. I'm Chois Woodman. Been tuned in to the Ask Level podcast, brought to you by Double T 97.3.
You've been listening to the Ask Level podcast, powered by Double T 97.3.